In 2013, philanthropist Eugene Hobson tried to bootstrap as many of the working poor and unemployed in Night City up to better economic standings as he could. The biggest problem, as he saw it, was a lack of experience in a trade and a lack of opportunity due to their current financial crisis. Hobson bought a mid-size office building that had gone out of business, refurbished it into a facility that could handle large numbers of prospective temp employees per day, threw out placards and advertising everywhere, and started business. When Eugene died in 2015 of coronary heart disease, his son, Michael, himself a respected businessman, took over the company. Looking at the financial records, he found that Street Temps was not only not making money, it was a serious drain on the resources of Hobson Enterprises. Michael didn't want to close the company down. It was a good PR machine, but he knew it wasn't going to succeed with its current modus operandi. The first thing he did was to assign his executive assistant, a Harvard business grad, as the operations officer of Street Temps. He expanded the jobs database to include more professional postings and secretly undertook another project based upon the street culture and the freelance operatives the media were calling Edgerunners. He also knew that there was no centralized way of getting hold of them. Corpos usually worked with a single set of runners that they had come to trust, or tried to get in touch with a team or operative through a fixer. This was tricky, as you might not get what you needed or wanted. What was needed, Michael reasoned, was a temp agency for Edgerunners, a way to match up teams and operatives with jobs that were suited not only to their skills, but their temperament. Such an agency would have to be net-based, of course, so it can be tied back to him. Michael set his people to work, and early in 2016, a new database opened for business, one not advertised in scream sheets. This database didn't even have a name at first, but in the solo bars in the back streets, the rumors spread and the word got out. If you needed work and weren't all that particular about knowing who you worked for or what you did, there was a new place to find jobs. Of course, the ties to Street Temps were very quickly found by netrunners, content to leave the database alone. After all, Street Temps was performing a useful service. Many even helped upgrade the system's net security. In 2017, an unnamed netrunner smashed into the database. Looking around, he is said to have commented, "What the hell? This is a bleedin' Edgerunners Incorporated." He then jacked out just before getting stomped by a local net jockey. The name spread, and now everyone calls the shadow database Edgerunners Incorporated, even the folks at Street Temps. Despite having been originally developed by a fourth-tier corporation with limited resources, Edgerunner Incorporated computer defenses are state-of-the-art and very formidable. Several high-quality netrunners have volunteered to upgrade their defenses. It is rumored Spider Murphy and Rash Bartmoss himself have been involved. Some of the top edgerunners in the database include Bosch. Nobody's sure where this erratic bounty hunter comes from. Acquaintances say he was a beat cop in the New York area for several years and was dismissed from the force for attacking a superior officer. Allegedly, the officer ordered Bosch to shoot a street kid who hadn't done anything except splash mud on the officer's boots. After a hearing, he had his badge revoked. Bosch became despondent. He had no interest in joining the military, but he was bored and needed the action. He returned to his old precinct, where a new commander had been assigned, and began picking up bounties. After a couple of successful kills and captures, he persuaded the new commander to issue him a hot beep, the mini transmitter undercover cops use when they need to call for help. Bosch called in a raid on a massive snuff porno operation. He became a trusted freelancer with the department. When going after a bounty, Bosch becomes obsessive. He learns whatever he can about the target before going in. sometimes following the unfortunate subject around for a while, waiting for the right moment. This usually requires some sort of detective work, so Bosch employs a series of disguises and bluffs. He carries a variety of IDs with assumed names, and is always ready to make new ones to fit the assignment. Once Bosch has identified his target, he doesn't stop hunting until the contract is filled. This has taken him around the country, often hitching rides with highway cops and nomad packs to reach his destination. This has also made him several friends and enemies across the US. Bosch's personality is the most disquieting thing about him. Normally talkative, friendly and laid back, with sarcastic comments and funny sayings. While on duty, he becomes brooding and morbid. Worse, he takes an almost obscene pleasure in fulfilling a bounty, dead or alive. Even stranger is Bosch's bizarre hunger for junk food. His eating habits would make a sharp-suited, health-crazed mover drop dead on the spot. Bosch often suffers a serious cash flow problem and is constantly on the hunt for work. Between big contracts, he goes on private wars for free. As a result, he'll pick up any bounty, even petty ones on low-level downs. Bosch does his homework well before he sets out, which means he won't hunt people who aren't asking for it. No one's sure what that means, but it's hard to trick him into an assassin's job. Saber grew up in the wreckage of Seattle's suburbs. When she was 5, her parents sold her to a ripper-dog for money. She would have been chopped up for commercial parts, but fate stepped in. The doctor who brought her didn't know the area well, and while driving home, he was carjacked under the freeway. The boosters didn't even notice her in the burning car. Miles from home, Saber escaped the wreck and wandered the streets, joining the extensive homeless colonies under the highway. Saber was adopted by a local juvie gang in central Seattle. She learned how to fight and kill, how to bleed, how to take a beating, and how to dish one out. Her de facto brothers and sisters taught her the lessons of cruelty and twisted camaraderie. By her 12th birthday, Saber had been arrested dozens of times, but she never served more than a couple of months at a stretch, if any time at all. She returned to the streets every time. When Saber was 16, her gang assembled in the Seattle Heights, where they met in combat with their longtime rivals. The fight lasted 7 minutes. When the smoke cleared, most of Saber's comrades were dead or dying. Badly injured and jacked up on combat drugs, she took off, killing rivals left and right as she fled. Saber tried various times to get off the street, but not even the Seattle PD would have her. C-SWAT was training, but she wasn't that crazy yet, and the military was out of the question. They had just gotten their asses kicked in Venezuela. Inevitably, she sank into the niche of the classic street samurai. Since then, Saber has performed hits, robberies, escorts, sabotage, extractions, and a host of other jobs. She is strictly a freelancer, accepting cash or the equivalent euro, weapons, skill, chips, the newest combat drug. Whatever. Make her an offer she thinks matches the job and she's yours. Saber doesn't sleep around. Go out on dates, dance, sing, smile, or do anything else remotely fun. During downtime, she either drinks, does drugs, watches the holovid, or plays arcade braindance games for cash. She despises the party culture and tolerates it only because that's her hiring hall. She knows how to show respect for prospective employers, how to talk the street, and how to act in public. But that's about it. Saber is not the typical Iceman. She does not relish or regret killing, nor does she live for the rush of combat. She feels neutral about her job, just as she feels neutral about everything she does. It is something she does because she has to, and that's it. After years of drugs, abuse, and gang life, Saber no longer bothers to react to anything beyond the basic human responses. Bruce. Born into a nomad pack, Bruce has been on a move from the earliest days he can remember. He came to the US when still young, but has not shed his Australian background. Serving as a heavy weapons specialist in several small South American African wars, he learned his trade as a US Army trooper, and then as a mercenary. Bruce lives for the thrill, doing things on the spur of the moment. He is usually violent and antisocial, even to his fellow companions. He is particularly touchy about his parents, and will extract a painful revenge for any slurs, real or imagined. Always reacting before thinking has given Bruce a very checkered past, with numerous enemies among his fellow mercenaries and ex-employers. It has also led him to new friends as well. He is owed a considerable favour from a Raven executive when Bruce's team successfully fought off a large, well-equipped extraction attempt on him. Another time he helped a police SWAT unit, giving them cover fire during a booster gang ambush. He has had a string of short but passionate affairs, with only one real relationship which finished when she recently accepted a bodyguarding job. Bruce believes in a group rather than individuals, attempting to keep a group of people together at the expense of any individual. This has led him to threaten his superiors if they were planning to sacrifice the group in a stupid and pointless way. He enjoys swapping war stories and will happily fight alongside someone he's just met if he has had some military experience. Always preferring to use the biggest weapon available has brought Bruce the reputation as a maximum force man, when minimum force would have been just as effective in most cases. His axiom is, if he's always prepared for a major firepower action, then when it goes down, he'll be able to deliver the goods. Bryce is the handle of one of the most popular and hated newsmen in the US. His real name is closely guarded by NetNews54, and for security purposes, he has no permanent address. Bryce's family disappeared during the earthquake which destroyed Los Angeles. He was found by corporate police, who were sweeping transients for work in corporate labor facilities. Younger than most of the juvies he was brought in with, Bryce got lucky, managing to become an office gopher at Petrochem's brutally infamous East Lubbock work facility. He got even luckier when a manager decided to adopt the boy, a stand-in son for his infertile wife. They moved east after scandal closed the facility a few years later, his father becoming general manager for Petrochem, New Jersey. Bryce's adoptive parents put him through good schools, and although they hoped he would join the company, he took an interest in investigative journalism. Not a good choice in a paranoid era when nothing is what it seems. Working on carefully sanitized company school newspapers, Bryce managed to get expelled several times for running stories on the no-go list. After college, he was picked up by recruiters from NetNews54. Never forgetting his East Lubbock roots, Bryce immediately began investigating corporate mischief, making several enemies that first year, and nearly getting fired twice. He knew that the corpos weren't the only ones screwing up the world. The government was just as bad. Bryce forced the governor of Florida to admit she had ordered the state guard to attack his motel room during an investigation into dangerous genetic tampering with crops, courtesy of Biotechnica. By his third year, he earned the corporate equivalent of a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of the booster wars in Night City, often traveling with the gangs, interviewing the street movers and the heavy hitters on the spot in order to file his story. Tiny Joe the Med Techie. Tiny Joe Rolak stands about 6'7", weighs in at 260 pounds, likes to bench press scrap steel, and is perpetually eating a bag of garlic sour cream and barbecue kibble chips. He's also EMT certified, fully competent in street surgery, familiar with cyber grafting, and legally licensed to perform emergency medical services on the spot. When he's not doing that, he's running himself into debt in one of the several Chinatown gambling pits. Tiny grew up in Las Salinas, a decaying California beach town. Tourism, the town's only industry, didn't survive the collapse. Nobody had money for vacations anymore, and the highways leading to Las Salinas were too dangerous. The golden beaches and blue waters, which made the town so popular, were knee-deep in toxic sludge and bristling with medical waste. His family left, joining the mass of refugees along the California freeway system. 17, tired of the nomad life, he left on his own for San Francisco. San Francisco had weathered the end of civilization well. Once there, Tiny became embroiled in the juvie gang culture, constantly in one scam or another. After a round of detention halls, holding cells and work camps, he rambled until, at age 20, he contracted a virus which damaged his nervous system. Lucky to be alive, he opted for medical training to pay off his bills. That was 6 years ago. Tiny served his time in the combat trauma clinics of San Francisco. After 2 years, he went freelance. Tiny worked with various strike medical services, found a lover, lost her to a Red Chrome Legion attack, went home to Las Salinas, found his family scattered, and dejectedly returned to San Francisco. Tiny can best be described as a people person. He is loud, boisterous, and jovial. Few people who meet Tiny don't like him. His sense of humor stems from staring death in the face every day for the past 2 years, when facing a string of personal disasters. Tiny has also worked for Trauma Team. Patchwork the Medtechie, aka Sheila Darwin. Very little is known about Sheila Darwin until her late teens. She was originally from the Madrid slums and was involved in anti-government actions at this time. She was expelled from her second year of med school for several projects involving DNA codes deemed illegal by the EC's General Genetics Act of 2004. Sheila got a mid-man agent and took to the streets as an underground haute couture medic, Europe's answer to the American Ripperdoc. Her labs were raided in 2018 during a messy incident which turned into a PR nightmare. Despite her agent's best efforts, she was disgraced and her operation was shut down. Unwilling to relocate to the Orient and prone to space sickness, Sheila left for the US, the only marketplace left. She has plied her trade cross-country ever since, specializing in wetware, bioware, biotech, and genetics. She is also proficient in surgery and likes to obtain limb samples for cloning experiments. Patchwork is the name she acquired on the street for her custom body jobs, but Sheila Darwin isn't her real name either. Her old identity, tainted by the episode in Madrid, has been wiped clean. Patchwork is quiet and businesslike. Sometimes she is pleasant enough, but is always talking about her work. Other times she's too distant and detached, even for other medtechies to understand. She always looks to further her research in biotechnology. For this, she needs a constant flow of new tech, fresh body parts, and cash. As a result, she freelances to those looking for the right biotech. Her clients include gangsters, street samurai, brain dance stars, intelligence agents, posers, strange boosters, and others. Patchwork can alter you into something from your wildest dreams or your worst nightmares, depending on how your procedure turns out. She also performs for more exotic sculpt jobs, not found openly. For the most part, Sheila lives and works out of her salvaged pre-collapse van, custom refitted for her work. Sylph the Medtechie. Sylph originally belonged to an archaeology group, giving her a sense of extended family, where people tried to help one another when possible. This, coupled with an interest in her father's profession, who was an archaeology doctor, led to her becoming a caregiver as well. She passed her exams easily and joined her father on the archaeology med staff. This was soon brought to an abrupt end when he was thrown out of the archaeology for treating illegal occupants. She was orphaned that same month in a drive-by shooting. Confused and alone, Sylph was lucky enough to fall in with a local block guardian gang. Sylph has decided to help other people and to look after herself at the same time, becoming a street doc, helping those who can pay her something. The payment is usually small, and even only as much as a promise of future help. She is afraid of the effects of cyberware on the human psyche, and will not deal with it if she can help it. Victor Crow, Victor Crow was one of the lucky ones. His childhood was wealth and security in a place where black-clad gun-toting guards offered salutes on well-manicured landscapes. He went to company schools and became an employee of IEC after graduation, a life nothing short of pampered drudgery. From childhood, he had learned the rules of the game and quickly carved his own niche in corporate society. At the customary parties, he was the model executive child. Then he snuck off like everybody else to screw and do synth coke all night. Victor never liked cyberware. He never saw the point to altering yourself, never found any appeal in becoming metal. But he knew there was money to be made as he watched the sales ledgers grow exponentially, fattened by fools who couldn't do without their precious cybernetics. Then he met Dana, the daughter of the marketing vice president, at a party. She had forgotten her pills, and Victor had all kinds of chemicals to keep her happy. They immediately hit it off. They also shared the same philosophy when it came to cyberware. The pair began their own little venture, making top-grade metal disappear from warehouses, skimming off the top and raking in a small fortune. Mum and Dad would have been proud, until the day internal investigations came around and Mum and Dad were demoted to minor clerical positions. In a blind panic, Victor swapped some names, juggled some numbers, burned a few documents, and in the space of an hour, neatly dumped the whole blame in Dana's lap. Dana's father was removed from his position. Dana was blacklisted forever. That weekend, at a party in Baltimore, several gentlemen from marketing, accompanied by a dozen or so chromers, nearly tore Victor to shreds. His company accounts had been cancelled, so Victor was rushed to a nearby trauma clinic. He packed up and fled the hospital the following Monday, bandages and all. Since he hit the Washington DC area, Victor has re-established contact with his various cohorts from the old organization. He is a slick, arrogant hustler who has worked for various criminal syndicates, usually arranging the sale of illegal cybernetics in bulk, the fencing of stolen cyberware, or the procurement of rare black tech. In business conversations, he is exceedingly friendly and outgoing, always willing to consider another concession in exchange for a little favor later. He has good relations with the other syndicates in the city, and so far is too small to really bother anybody. Note that Victor is not above murder, but never without a legitimate grievance. Victor's only problem now is that the company is still actively searching for him with intent to prosecute. He needs a hiding place. He needs cash, but first he needs that one big score to get him moving. Brain. John McCullen. Brain comes from a 4-generation line of Brooklyn mechanics. His family lived in a crummy apartment above his father's garage. The smells of oil, gasoline, and sweat became second nature. From early childhood, Brain was a natural at taking things apart, analysing the pieces, and putting them back together successfully. Through high school, Brain worked the shop, slowly earning the money he would need to attend local college. Things were tough in the post-96 chaos. They were robbed dozens of times, cars would get stripped or stolen off the lot, road boosters would loot the garage for spare parts. Twice, John had to ward off thieves with his father's 9mm. John's dreams of college ended shortly after his 16th birthday. Coming home late one night, Brain's parents were killed in a car accident. Devastated, he abandoned the shop and did the only thing he could think of. He enlisted for a 2-year tour in Central America, figuring he could see the world, live a life of danger and earn some money for college. In basic, Brain learned to assemble and repair more complex things, including electronics, cybernetics, and heavy vehicles. After training, John was assigned to Firebase Antietam, a little slice of hell in the middle of Peru. In 2006, Sergeant McCullen was standing under an APC doing maintenance when the Peruvians attacked. He never saw the rocket destroy the hydraulic lift, sparking a fireball which horribly burned him. The vehicle came crashing down, crushing Brain's right side. Field medics fitted him on spot with cybernetics. Brain returned to the US shortly after that and floated around the East Coast. After hooking up with a fixer named Cricket, he became involved in Black Ops, a variety of gang wars and high-tech robberies. Susie Clove. Susie comes from mulatto Irish stock. All her family were involved in working with their hands. As a result, Susie showed an interest in all things electrical and cybernetics. This field is her fascination, and she has spent large amounts of money on cyberware and survived the experience. Her earlier life was dominated by cyberware and its acquisition, leading her to engage in illegal activities. This disregard for authority has made her rep among the street action. Her quick and effective repairs and rebuilds have resulted in limited friendships with certain Edgerunners. Susie had several lovers in the past, but most were before she borged herself up and became completely absorbed in technical stuff to the exclusion of all else. The Mailman, aka Jared Williamson. Unobtrusive, sums Jared up in a word. Brown hair, brown eyes, average build, the kind of guy who disappears in a crowd. In a conversation, he seems bright and likable, but nothing special. The kind of honest Joe everyone gets along with, but no one really notices. His clothing varies with the situation. It's always appropriate, but nothing that stands out. Forgettable. That's Jared. No one to pay any attention to, and that's exactly what he wants you to think. Jared grew up in a below-average section of San Francisco. His father lost his job when Jared was 13, leaving them to rely on his mother's salary. At 15, Jared left school to get a grocery job. He was smaller than the other boys, but always delivered the goods. Due to his neurotic habit of taking back streets and alleys, and his psychotic fighting style when he was stopped. One of his frequent customers asked Jared one day if he wanted to earn real money. Jared started delivering packages for his new employees, the Santorini Mafia family, one of the most powerful in San Francisco. Everything went fine for several years. His family had food, he had money for schooling, he got the chance to travel, and since he never knew what was in the packages he moved, he didn't feel any guilt. After all, he just moved boxes. Unknown to Jared, the Santorinis were having trouble with the triads. Things quickly broke down for the Santorinis, who had no time to summon reinforcements. The triads struck at everyone even vaguely Santorini connected, including bombing Jared's home while he was away. Jared returned to find half his family in the morgue, his mother in a coma in the ICU, his home destroyed, and his employees' organization in shambles. His life was ruined by a single act, a single piece of information he hadn't known. Jared had sizable funds, but the move to Night City, complete with almost impenetrable new IDs for his mother, used all of it, leaving little for the mounting medical bills. Jared returned to the only thing he knew, freelance delivery. As his rep grew, so did his volume. Now he's known as the Mailman, highly respected for his skill at delivering anything without attention. Lynx, aka Alinda Korolev. The February 19th, 1997 cover of Newsweek magazine features an award-winning photograph of a little girl gripping a melted polymer one-shot pistol. She is staring wide-eyed around the ruins of Coney Island after 3 days of rioting destroyed the neighborhood. The girl is emaciated and filthy, bleeding from a deep gash in her forehead. The streets are lined with rubble, and the body of a dead cop can be seen in the background. The accompanying story, America, the end is here, discussed how the US was falling apart. Linda Korolev was that little girl. Lynx entered the booster hardcore scene in her pre-teens, by age 17, and most of her old set were dead or doing hard time. New gangs had taken over the area, and the final blow came when Lynx's brother was chainsawed to death by the Givers of Pain. With the invasion of Brazil still underway, Linda joined the army and was assigned to the 1st Cybercav, where she served for 3 years. Returning to New York, Lynx became involved with crime and black ops, establishing a rep for herself. Lynx can be crude and abusive, and her contemporaries have said she's as subtle as a lead pipe. She prefers the traditional biker look, unconcerned with contemporary fashion. This attitude is a residue of her days with the gangs. She hates all Europeans, especially Euro solos and high riders as well, because she views LEO as a members-only extension of Europe. Lynx is making an honest effort to improve her attitude. She's had most of the cyberware from her gang days removed, and her remaining large-scale cyberware replaced with fresh body parts. Lynx still has her problems. She parties to excess, spending her cash on 20th century drugs. She desperately wants to remember her humanity, but keeps getting dragged down by the situation. Only time will tell if she will rise above her past or die trying. Krista Margaret, the bounty hunter. Coming from Eastern European stock, Krista served with the US Army for 4 years, during which she made lasting friendships and had a few affairs with some of the fellow soldiers in her company. Upon leaving the army, she drifted into the Steel Rats nomad pack, spending 2 years with them and rising to a position of some respect. Returning home to Los Angeles, she made a friend in the LAPD who showed her around the streets and made her realize that her talents could be of use to the general public, so she became a bounty hunter. Unfortunately, this led her into a head-on collision several years later with a large US corporation, which took offense to her shutting down one of her black ops. The corporation framed her for a killing and got her hunter's license revoked for a year. Though her standing was soon regained, Krista remains angry about the situation. She's undecided about her response, but is willing to handle any street action that will bring a little trouble to the corporation in question. Krista took on the dangerous job of bounty hunting initially to make ends meet, but developed a taste for the danger and excitement that came with the jobs. She learned on the streets to walk softly and carry an automatic weapon, meaning she tries to give the air of being a bimbo, wearing clothing that would be considered a liability in most combat situations, like revealing miniskirts and high heels. She uses this to her advantage, being able to surprise opponents with this completely brainless look. Crowman. No one really knows much about Crowman before he started working as a bouncer in a seedy club that catered to the more violent music lover. Obviously from a military background, he refuses to discuss his earlier life, saying he was only born recently when he became a Borg. Since his arrival, he has quickly built a reputation as either already being mad or about to go completely cyber-psychotic. He seems to have spent considerable money on his chroming and body sculpting. It was designed by the renowned Eiji of Tokyo, probably borderline psychotic before becoming a body-plated colossus. His remaining personality has become weirder and more violent. Crowman's major trait is the murderous rage he goes into if his body job is scratched. He has been known to kill members of 2 competing gangs because he walked into the middle of their firefight and got hit by a stray round. Not usually receptive to jobs, even he must eat, and therefore takes any job offered to him, regardless of what it entails. Crowman likes to get in close to his opponents, using his brute strength and rippers to literally tear them apart. While on a job, he ignores any orders given to him if there is a direct method of accomplishing the mission instead. This often leads to the death of his opposition and his fellow companions. The Nutter, aka Jean-Claude Morro. Coming from a non-corporate sponsored Canadian arcology, undereducated and always bored, Jean could see nothing in his immediate future. After he and his brothers and sisters were thrown out of the family apartment when their mother died, they split up and Jean-Claude joined the USMC. There he learned something very well: combat. After 2 tours of duty, he left the Marines and joined a small firm specializing in corporate security. His air of professionalism quickly got him the high-risk bodyguard jobs, and his success at these contracts meant that he has several corporates owing him their lives. Jean-Claude is quite happy to hold on to that debt, deciding to retire after 5 years in the business. He is looking for an occasional high-risk job to keep him sharp and interested in life. Nutter found that when bodyguarding, the ability to intimidate people can work better than killing them. Remembering the countless hours of anime he watched in the archaeology, he realized that a large, fire-breathing dragon usually intimidates everyone except the most determined people. He poured almost all his cash reserves into a dragon body enhancement, with all the combat bonuses and therapy he could afford, and has never regretted the decision. His built-in body weaponry, the claws, combat tailor and flamer, has saved himself on numerous occasions when the opposition thought that he was unarmed. Mihoshi Oni. Mihoshi Oni joined the Yakuza and was taught all the combat skills she would need to survive the rough streets. Showing her eagerness for the act of killing, she was soon awarded most of the wet work that needed doing. As she got older, she was taught by several masters of the sword and the skill of silent movement. Mihoshi was an apt pupil and soon became an expert in these older combat arts. Having been implicated twice for murder in the course of her various missions, she was spirited away to avoid arrest by the authorities and quietly retired from the Yakuza. They do not see her as unconnected, but Mihoshi is now building a separate reputation for herself as a Yojimbo, which means bodyguard. This hasn't led her into conflict with her ex-bosses yet. Always brought up to do the best that she could, Mihoshi tries to excel at everything she does. She has a very competitive streak, and this sometimes leads to her showing off when this would be stupid and potentially disastrous. Looking for ways to showcase her talents, she seeks the most difficult of missions so that her skills and intellect will be tested to the limit. She truly believes that the only way to prove your worth is to put your life on the line. Enjoying the thrill of the chase, Mihoshi will play with minor opponents, lulling them into mistakes and then punishing them. With more resourceful opposition, she quickly removes them. A loner, she prefers to split off from a group to do her own work. She likes getting in close and using her swords to finish an opponent off. Electric Angel, aka Sarah Mitchell. Brought up with computers, Sarah was immersed in the jargon of the information communication highway, and her family's various jobs with these systems for the emerging multinational corporations. She went away to university to study computers, but her interests lay in other fields, and she quickly dropped the computer studies for a media course. She excelled but kept returning to the area of computing and found herself reporting on the explosion of the net onto the world scene. She was in the right place at the right time, having the experience to be able to understand the net and the skills to communicate it to the general public. This brought her to the attention of Network 54, and they proceeded to seduce her into a long-term contract with them for a net-based news show called Angel Hour, which became one of the most watched non-fiction shows on Network 54, particularly in the UK, where it's often banned. A carefree and easygoing young woman, she sees herself as making sure that the net is accessible to all to use, not just a few corporate elite. She rationalizes her selling out to Network 54, and on the basis that they give her the freedom to do her thing without shackling her to the Network 54 company line. Originally starting as a solo reporter, she prefers to work with no one else. This has led her into dangerous and potentially lethal positions, only getting the story out through luck, chance, and some good friends. She can be very manipulative and will use almost any means to get her story, especially if it's corp-related. Mariko Sonomi. As the daughter of a Japanese businessman, Mariko wanted to please, but school was just so boring. She barely graduated from her prestigious high school and went to college in America. There, her people skills led her to a media relations degree, but her tendency to flirt gave her no real experience to anchor a resume on. Mariko's skill with people was quickly recognized, and her boss made her a proposition. She could earn a lot of money if she helped them acquire a rival corp's senior researcher. Mariko, crushed by her father's condemnation, agreed. If she could prove herself, maybe her father would relent. Mariko's first recruiter job was somewhat perilous and with a few ethical quandaries, but successful. She was next asked to get some information out of another businessman. So her career began. The corporation folded 2 years later, but by then, Mariko had positioned herself to enter the freelance world. She circulates in the right social circles and frequently dates. She never gives any sign whether she's targeting them, so people are never sure whether she's recruiting and when it's just reaction. Mariko relies on her skills as a seductress, not as a thief, but has developed other skills to facilitate her job. As a recruiter, her job is to seduce researchers, high-level management, and other key employees from one corporation to another. The actual extraction is the job of a team of professionals. She gets her mark to trust and confide in her, letting her into their homes and offices, where she can get at their secrets. She has been known to use blackmail, but only rarely, as she finds it distasteful. Mariko is a tall, slender Japanese woman with short black hair and a classic, ageless beauty. She is extremely physically fit and can handle herself in a fight. China Doll grew up in a safe corporate housing estate, the daughter of a low-level corp worker. The corporate school taught her to respect her parents, other people, and the corporation above all others. Happy in this microcosm, she quickly became a skilled photographer and seemed happiest around people. Earmarked for a place in a corp's PR department, she was fast-tracked into a corporate-sponsored university to study public relations. While there, she realized that the corporate-fed media only reported a small slice of the actual news, and she began to take unauthorized trips to see the streets for herself. There, she learned that the corporations had a tyrannical grip over their employees and started to put an anti-corp slant into her stories. These minor items were picked up mostly by pirate stations. Continuing her studies, she passed with honors and was offered a place in the PR department of her sponsor corporation. To their surprise, she turned them down and went freelance with several smaller networks, developing a taste for gritty street stories with a corporate slant. She learned the necessary skills to keep her out of trouble. Her former corporate sponsor was not pleased by this turn of events, but can do nothing until she makes a mistake. China is a disillusioned woman who saw all her early values exposed as merely corp policy drummed into her as a child. She has made new friends in her new world, but still misses her family, and is angry that her father's corporation will not allow her to see them for security reasons. Deciding to enjoy her life to the fullest, she is a frequent customer of nightclubs. There she can unwind and keep her ear out for any gossip that could lead to a story. By picking up on the said gossip, then following up on any possible leads generated means she's always working and not always getting a story in return. However, the fact that she can enjoy herself at the same time, sometimes on others' money, makes this her preferred way of operating. She uses people for both pleasure and information, usually at the same time. Dr. Snoopy. Born to a middle-rank criminal family, Snoopy was protected from his family's dealings, and family profits were used to send him to a university to study medicine. However, he was suddenly dragged into the family's work when his parents were killed by a rival crime chief. Not long afterwards, he realized the money-making potential of his skills. His first attempt at designer drug production led quickly to arrest and imprisonment for 2 years, where he learned to refine his methods and some harsh lessons in survival. With the last of his family's money, he bought his parole and some useful cyberware. Leaving prison to make his way on the street, he began acting as a ripperdoc under the childhood pseudonym of Dr. Snoopy. Upset that his entire early life was a tissue of lies, Dr. Snoopy has no respect for himself or others, seeing everyone as tools to use so he can better himself. He has become a doctor who is willing to take risks with his own and others' lives, caring nothing for the pain of his patients or whether a person dies under his knife. The one dream he still clings to is to control his own large-scale drug laboratory, making products for his own use and for street sale. He will betray anyone or any ideal to reach this dream, regardless of any future backlash on himself or anyone else. Dr. Snoopy has become widely known as a Ripper Doc who, through brutal in practice, is willing to perform any operation with no interest in the usage of his work afterwards. Cyberdog. Born into a nomad pack, the young man grew up never knowing for sure which members were his parents. As he got older, he was chosen by the chief techie of the pack as an apprentice and began to learn the intricacy of maintaining the pack's cyberware. However, the two main loves of his life became explosives and looking after the pack dogs. Cyberdog trained the pack's animals to act as perimeter guards. Along the way, he started designing and implanting modified cyberware into the dogs to improve them. At age 17, his nomad group was ambushed by operatives of an unknown corporation. They were killed almost to the last person. The only survivor was Cyberdog and his vengeance. He began a life on the streets and continued his experiments with cyber-enhanced dogs. His expertise in both repairs and cyberware quickly made him a leader in the field and gained him several acquaintances, including police and corporates alike. Corporate, who became a regular customer, eventually found out about his quest for vengeance and used it as bait to lure Cyberdog into working for Militech's research department. Given all the equipment and money he needed, Cyberdog quickly developed the cyberware now used in Militech's K9 guards. But he was also working on another project which he kept secret from the Corp. They eventually discovered the secret project's existence, and when they refused to tell him which corporation had attacked his old family, he seemed to give in and agreed to tell them about the new project. He demonstrated his Cerebus project the next day by having a Cyberform Greyhound unit run up to the crowded observation enclosure and detonate in front of the blackmailing executive. During the confusion, he slipped away from the facilities and returned to the streets, taking the design of his new blast hounds with him. Cold and detached, his main motivation is to find out who arranged the wiping out of his pack and why. Cyberdog maintains a false friendly relationship with everyone so that he can use them later to get information or to help in pursuit of his revenge. Only when someone is of no use to him anymore will he show his real feelings. He either sells his blast hounds for use or hires out his expertise in a range of fields to whomever needs it, except corporations.